Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to not a bad sort of Sunday to try and do the garden update. Hopefully the weather will hold out and I won't have to hide underneath the camera this week. As seems to be kind of a steady thing, we're once again messing with a different setup on the mic. I do have the external mic set up, but it doesn't have its fancy little cover today. So hopefully the sound will be fairly clear, not too muffled, and there goes the wind. So we'll see how it does with that too. Alright, there are a few fun things to look at this week, so I guess without too much more babbling, we should just get started. Cool. So one of the first things I guess I really want to show you guys, and hopefully it's coming up properly on the camera, these are, I think these are the Polar Jewels. Like I say, I still haven't found that label, but we have nice color coming in. And like I say, hopefully the camera is focused on that. Still learning to work with the tripod and have a little faith. But just big numbers of fruit this year. This one's not quite ripe yet. So it's going to have a bit of an almost plum-like texture to, or flavor I should say, to it. And it does. It's pretty close to ripe though. So this has been just wonderfully productive this year. And it's only, you know, going on to the end of June, just technically beginning of summer. This is bearing fruit, so definitely a good choice for a nice early season fruiting bush. Definitely want to get more of these things in place. And there are just tons of green berries on here, not even close to ripe yet. So we're going to be harvesting well into the next month, I think. Let's try moving the camera just a little bit here. Give you another kind of an angle. And it's when you look under the branches that you really start to get some idea of just what kind of numbers are going on in there. And it is delightful. Alright, so moving on. Guess that kind of brings us to this little beauty here. This is the random indigo rose that popped up in one of the old pepper planters. I gave up on the idea of finding a new home for it, just put it in a tomato cage here. Stuffed it into it as carefully as I could. Got a nice little cluster of fruit forming on there. Another nice little cluster a little farther up. The basil, it's keeping company. Hopefully we can see that in a shot. Seems to be doing just fine. And this currant bush is exploding with new growth this year, and that is hiding, I'll change the camera angle, just a mass of little berries. So here's a slightly better look at those. This particular cluster seems to be quite covered in cobwebs, but I'm not too worried about that. I don't think we even get gypsy moths out here, but there are just loads of these things on here. Not really seeing any color yet, so clearly not really in competition with the Haskap for early berry, but I don't think we're going to be waiting too terribly much longer until we can enjoy some of these things. It will be a race with the birds though. We'll definitely be a race with the birds, which I guess brings us to the birds. So here we have the older ladies. If you look up on top of the pallet there, the younger ones have learned about getting a little elevation, and they're getting a lot bigger. Getting on time to do a proper update on those, but supposed to be just garden stuff today, but somebody insists on making a racket every time I'm out here. Can't imagine why. Dandelion fiend. Off by the chickens we have this sort of raised bed, hugel bed, swale thing. Still no signs of garlic popping up in here yet. And most recently I was toying with the idea of putting the cabbage in here, because this all peels off pretty easy. And I'll just set the tripod down and show you. Like I said, no signs of garlic, so might as well do something with this space. So this stuff peels back easy enough. I'm thinking I'll just get the rake, toss it into where the chicken's compost used to be. It's all pulls up pretty easy. And then if I just transplant those little red cabbages into here, I'll lose a little bit of length of that cloth, but I should be able to cover most of this, keep them safe from those brassica moths, and maybe finally get them out of the basement. They're only a 67 or 70 day cabbage, so hopefully I've still got time to at least get some little heads from that, and then I could be putting this swale to use too, right? So that would be good. That would be good. Got some sun over on the peppers at the moment, so let's go check those out. So of course we have the wind picking up as I'm trying to do a slightly longer shot clip here, but hopefully you can see where I'm at here in the garden. I'm at one of the lemon halves in the back, and we've got a very nice little pepper forming on here. In fact, quite a few of these lemon habaneros seem to be forming decent little peppers. We've got one for sure, 2, 3, 4 just on that one little plant. So I'm very excited about the long-term continuation of what started off as the Bear's Den AeroGarden project. Clearly these peppers in the back are doing much better than any of the ones in the front half of the garden that we'll look at in a second here. Those front tiny peppers all being the ones from the basement, the aphid war survivors. It was rough. It was rough. But these peppers, like I was saying, are looking pretty good, and I've seen a lot of active pollinators flying around the yard, visiting the plants and just the various wildflowers we have. There's a reason we keep the dandelions growing here, and pollinators are a big part of it. So yeah, let's look at the little peppers in the front. Well, nice that the sun has come back out for this next little clip here, but so here we've got the much smaller survivors of the aphid wars. I tried really hard to mess with a lot of different things in the basement this year for my garden starts, and ultimately I can't keep the temperature consistent enough for chilies down there. However, it's going to be fine for a lot of herbs and leafy greens. I think I'll be growing a lot of chard, lettuces, spinach, maybe even cabbage. We'll see how it goes down there, but it's going to be upstairs in the Bear's Den through the AeroGarden, I think, for pepper starts from now on, because as pretty as these are, and very nice for my garden, they just don't compare to those ones we were looking at a minute ago. This one, Bahut chocolate habanero cross, still very much delighting me with the dark purple nature of its leaves, but I really don't think any of these are going to have time to put on real fruit set, you know. That said, this one surviving Santa Fe Grande, this is like a 6-month-old pepper. You have to keep that in mind too, which is really quite sad. But we do have a little flower forming on there, so maybe we'll get a green one. I don't think it'll get a chance to actually get ripe for us, but with these larger Trinidad Scorpion T-Reds, those did come out of the AeroGarden. Hopefully you can see them in the shot there. They're doing pretty well, but again, I don't see any flowers on there yet. I'm nervous. I don't know if they're going to have time for fruit or not. So I'm really glad I left that one sample upstairs, and it is already putting on a pod. So that is fantastic. So here we can see those Painted Lady runner pole beans doing pretty well along the outskirts here. Fairly pleased with that. Definitely growing faster than the corn that they're supposed to be growing up. So yeah, the lesson for next year, give those a couple of weeks. A lot of interesting thistles coming up this year. Look at those pumpkins though, eh? That is looking fabulous. Starting to get some good growth on that. And again, that's supposed to be a much shorter season variety, so hopefully we'll actually get some decent carvable pumpkins. If not carvable, then at least bakeable into a nice harvest loaf, or pumpkin pie, pumpkin tarts. There's so many good things you can do with pumpkin. Pumpkin soup, there's another good one. Corn seems to be coming along, I'm going to say well-ish. Not as well as I would like, but better than I expected. This one row, of course, still easily taking first place for most consistent sprouting and growth. I don't know, maybe it just gets that little bit more morning sun. It's hard to say, hard to say. And then that brings us to the radish and the carrot bed. How delightfully mixed is this, eh? Starting to see some true leaves coming up in the carrots. So I'm going to want to start to thin out these radishes, I think, just to give them a better chance to grow, them being the carrots, of course. But now, these are primarily that French breakfast variety, so we're looking for a longer, more cylindrical radish, and that's kind of what we're getting. These are lovely sort of nibbler size. So we've got some veggie dip inside. That was a bit tragic, but you know what? In those cases, the greens on the top here, fabulous in a salad. Absolutely no reason to just toss that to the compost. Save it for your salads later and enjoy the sort of peppery flavor that goes with that. It is kind of hit or miss though, especially since they were planted in amongst other root crops. But look at that one, had a little more space, did a little better for itself. Hard to complain about that. So I guess while we learned last year that the carrots don't mind being crowded, the radishes really do want their space. I'm surprised how well they did, because we have those canola beetles, flea beetles here, and they have ravaged our radishes in the past. Didn't bother putting the cloth over this, although I certainly thought about it. Some lovely nibblers here. Good to know that I can get away with sharing the carrot bed and still produce some nice little edibles here. Just looking down at them now, yeah, they're clearly not all forming little bulbs, but like I said, those greens are perfectly delicious. So, alright, nice little nibble. And then I guess it wouldn't be really a complete update without a quick look at our little cherry tree here. A lot of these are doing fairly well, and some of them even have color, but we have been going through and taking off any of them that really just don't have a prayer and are probably just wasting the efforts of the plant. Here's a little perfect example of that. That is way too small to ever actually become anything useful, so why put the effort into it? Hopefully that's focusing. Still got a lot of learning to do with this camera, but it works, so that's a step in the right direction. Alright, handful of radishes. I think that's about that. Definitely going to enjoy these greens and nibblies though. Well, I guess it wouldn't really be a complete update without showing you the chard is finally popping up. I can start to see kind of definitive chard leaves in amongst all of this. So a little quick weeding and that'll be much easier to see. Give it a nice chance to grow. There's a few of them. I'll pan along a little bit here. There's one there, there's one there, a couple there, a couple there. And we can see, hopefully you can see it there, this one here up in the middle row. And way in the back, you can even see the third row beginning. So I think this is actually going to do really well once I clean it up and kind of let the garden focus on the chard that I want to be growing here. I imagine I'll throw down, oops, bashing the tripod around there. I imagine I'll throw down some lawn clipping mulch just to kind of suppress this weed growth. Give our intentional leafy greens a better chance. But because this was all sifted, it's all pulling out super easy. And I imagine most of this is safe to give the chickens as kind of a microgreen, so nothing goes to waste, which of course you guys know, that's how I like it. So alright, so I'm probably going to be at this weeding for a little while. I want to thank y'all for checking out the update this week, and by all means, if you've got any advice, please share it with me in the comments down below. And otherwise, I guess I will see you probably next Thursday, taking a look at the pepper jungle we've got going upstairs in the bear's den. Alright everybody, take care and have yourselves a fantastic week ahead.